Hello, this is Nicholas Wern again. For this is the third session of this LinkedIn Live, and I am just in between meetings with this Brazil-Sweden matchmaking event, thanks to my colleague and partner company, Mikael Suvajärvi from partner company Alminica, and that has been amazing. So I'm actually going to take a use case from something that I learned right now, just a couple of minutes ago, about a city in Brazil. Thank you so much to Barbosa, fantastic meeting, and also Tiago and also Mattia that I just talked to. So imagine right now you're standing in the city, whatever city you're from, whatever city you're in, and you're standing in the central square, and you want to know. Let's just start with internet connectivity, or your cell phone is not working. So you want to understand where should I go? What is the best place for me to go? To have great cellular connectivity. And then you look up into the sky, because of course you're wearing smart glasses. This might be in a couple of years, or just now we're using a smartphone or even HoloLens or something like that. And you can see the internet connectivity, where it's green. So you go there, and you can see everything that is not right now invisible. The pollution levels, you can see that, again, working with augmented reality. Because one of the things that I got the feedback, augmented reality is not real. And the metaverse, buzzword bingo, it's more for collaboration, it's not real. Well, doesn't that depend on what you bring in to the metaverse, what you bring in and you choose to visualize in augmented reality? And this is again how it relates to the digital twin movement, because digital twins, for the ones who don't know what that is, and again, I don't think anyone in the digital twin space can agree on exactly what that might be either. But if we go for the digital twin consortium, what they say, and again I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, what a digital twin is. So it's a digital representation of something that exists in reality, in the real world, and for me that has to be a visual, a virtual copy. So if it's a tree, it's not just the digital information about that tree, it's actually the tree, right? And the way that it looks like. And that's where Unity, Unreal Engine, game technologies come in, because they have the ability to, of course, visualize and virtualize and make anything that is in reality into a game environment or into a digital environment. So, but again, so if we go with the digital twin definition, it's a digital representation of something that exists in reality: a car, a tree, a dog, a house, a lake, a nation, the whole world, from a planet perspective, right? That is fed with real-time data at certain intervals, or regular intervals, certain intervals, let's call it like that, called so-called twinning rates. So Prolomitra is like, the metaverse is a virtual world. Well, it's a bold statement. And the metaverse is a collaboration, arena that has historically been, tied to just the virtual world. But the big open secret is, again, when you tie this virtual world with digital twins, so what you're virtualizing is actually tied to reality. I mean, it's the biggest hidden and open secret in the world right now. Of course, there are some companies that are working in this space, but I'm giving this to you for free. Well, it's not for free for me because I'm taking my time, but I definitely think it's going to be worth it, because the more people that understand, and pro Mitra here, in the comment section, or I wouldn't say maybe understand, but are informed of other ways of working or applying tools in a different way, the better. Because I think that, when we look at historically, the way that we evolved as a species is that we're pretty good at using tools, right? And that's how we've evolved. And that's also why it's a bit strange that whenever a new technology comes into play, or a buzzword bingo number one, it's exactly a buzzword. 99% of the population or the people think, again, with hype cycle, that it's not ready right now, but it is, most of it. And yes, this is a recorded session. So again, going back to the original topic, the metaverse and digital twins, what is the relationship? The relationship is that there are both approaches, to some extent at least, on how you could improve reality, not just escape from it. Digital twins, by its nature, are there to try to help people understand the reality that we're already in. However, the problem is that in the real world is that it's very, very fragmented. We live in a world like, I can maybe show here, you know, this is, the reality. We have a building that is being constructed right here. We have a graveyard, cemetery kind of something right here where there's a lot of information tied to it about the trees, about who people live there, their history. Sometimes I was going to say jogging, but I'm not going to lie, walking around with the daily stand-up, and I look at the people, who are buried here. They're the ones that built Gothenburg, where I am, to where it's supposed to be, where it is. And anyway, I digress a little bit here, but if you look at digital twins, if you go back to that, and if we understand that this could be a virtual representation fed with real-time data from that object in reality at any given point in time, and then if we understand, or if we think that the metaverse is a collaboration environment made up with 3D models, right? So the only thing that is missing, like digital twins are 3D models, the metaverse can, of course, be fed with real-time data as well. So if you combine these two, it's basically, just a collaboration arena made possible with whatever it is that you're twinning. But again, this goes back to the sometimes a problem with digital twins, that it's made for individual products or parts of a product or parts of a factory. So let's take an example, a truck, let's say. So working with connected buildings as well as autonomous vehicles and being involved in some different conversations on a global level on that side, it's really apparent that we're dissecting the world at an early stage. We're looking at the world in slices and domains, and we're using proprietary tools to view that world, right? And communication between different systems is kind of difficult because of vendor lock-in, lack of standards, and the interoperability aspects are, challenging at times. And Anthony Slumbers, was asking me right now, is this live happening? And yes, it is. But if you snooze, you lose. Well, that's not true because you can actually attend this, afterwards. And it's a hello if you were attending this afterwards, of course. But again, going back to the truck, for a company, I mean, I'm here in Gothenburg. For a company like Volvo, they have thousands of people, working on the same thing. It's a truck, but they're stuck in processes, in hierarchy, political culture. People that have a lot of information about some specific part or parts of the ways of working. So they're like kings or queens and sitting on that information. And it's that is the interesting part. How can we make this truck then? What can we do with a digital twin play and possible leveraging the metaverse as well? So if I would, be a betting man, they're probably working on it right now. Maybe not necessarily figuring out, how to start, how to get going, how to succeed. But let's say you have not only one virtual model or 3D model of, the engine or parts of the engine, but exactly like they're doing with the Mars rover at NASA and JPL, they have a 3D model of the, the CAN infrastructure, of the hardware, the software, everything that goes into the truck. And, use that as the starting point, because that is, in fact, what every, 100,000 people are working with at any given moment, but they're not working with reality. They're working in fragmented systems, again, where it's hard for people across domains to communicate. It's really, really hard for systems across domains to communicate. And that's where the digital twin comes in. And coupled with the metaverse, you get a collaboration arena tied to the thing in the world that you're twinning. So this might be a bit cryptic. So I'm going to get back to, I think, the truck, because that is interesting. So usually on connected vehicles or buildings or anything for that matter, they started collecting data, data lakes or data swamps, most likely, and it's usually very fragmented, and it's usually very not really tied to the reality that the operators are in. And if someone works on from an AI or data scientist perspective, they don't always know exactly where in the car are we working on, right? Maybe they know part of the car, but as we all hopefully know by now, context matters. Context is everything, and it's not just context; it's understandable context. So again, if we run back, in time, maybe 20 years, Skype was introduced, and I remember thinking, wow, I can reach out to anyone in the world right now. I can talk to anyone in the world. That's so powerful. So that's again why my ambition has been to solve all the problems in the world, or at least help people solve problems faster, and also do that on a planetary scale because we have the ability to do so. However, when thinking about this session, I also realized even if you would reach out to someone in anywhere in the world, how do you understand each other? How do you communicate in an understandable way? And again, if I would have then a virtual model of this truck, and I invite someone, in China, for instance, or in Colombia, where I'm from, to work with me on that car. Usually, maybe they have to fly over to Sweden. There has to be maybe some chemistry between me and that person. But if we use the car, or sorry, the truck, as the boundary spanning element, so again, like boundary spanning is a theoretical field or more a practical field, I think is extremely interesting because we can use the actual, truck and not just a truck. You have a digital twin of the truck that has been built, filled with information, about the suppliers, where it's coming from, and everything is connected. So you can basically see the data flows, from it. And this very specific truck that we're going to talk about today, it's in the Australian outback somewhere, and we're doing an aftermarket service, connectivity, uptime, these kind of things, so that we want to deliver service so that we can ensure that it doesn't break down in the middle of Ayers Rock or something like that, right? And for us to do that, we have to understand this problem that is appearing right now in real time. Where is this coming from? And the problem today, I think, is you're looking at this problem maybe on a graph in a specific domain, and it's not always the case. There's most usually not the case where this problem it occurs in the same area where you look at it, right? It's the same way if if you have a problem with your back, it might be your shoe that is the problem or something like that. Anyway, so going back to the topic of digital twins and the metaverse. So if you then have the 3D model of that, model make of that truck, and you connect that 3D model to the actual, IoT streams that are coming from that specific truck somewhere in Australia. Again, you get then a real-time version of that specific truck, how it's behaving in that specific point in time, in a visual and a virtual way, right? So let's say we are in the metaverse, in the Volvo trucks or whatever truck, whatever something metaverse, the company metaverse, and this is just one of the many trucks that appear here. And I need to invite, a data scientist, the ones who are in charge of this area, all this kind of stuff. And we need to look at this part of the truck, but we're going to see, okay, really, really quickly, I can't see the problem. I don't understand where it is. So we track it, visualize it, and we track it like virtually and visually in our metaverse, collaboration perspective. And we see that, okay, somewhere over here must be a problem. And who's the area manager? Who's the one responsible for this? Okay, let's invite them in to the same conversation with the same interface that is visually, there, working for me as, from people to people, as well as talking, dynamically into interoperability in a composable digital twin perspective for system to systems. So we can ask, of course, in the future, what is the problem here? Why is this appearing? Why did it happen? And how can you counteract it? The digital twin will, answer this for us. Unfortunately, not a lot of companies are there. There are some, and I know which ones, but there are, we're not really there yet. But just by bringing up this visual representation, we get the ability for us not to talk to each other, but talk about something that is there, and talk about from our very own domain. So the legal requirements might be something, the contextual stuff might be there. We actually might want to talk to the driver, who what are you hearing, or again, like what are you feeling. But of course, you would have sensors, you would have audio, all this kind of stuff to create like a virtual digital twin, and where we collaborate is in the metaverse. And then you can have your whole NFT strategies. You can do whatever you want. So again, if the metaverse is just collaboration made possible, cartoonish or not, but with Unreal Engine, Unity, and other things, so you can make this more real than Unreal, to be honest. And if again, if you agree on that perspective, 3D collaboration made possible basically anywhere. It could be on the moon. It could be a totally fictitious virtual environment, but it could also be something that is based in reality. And again, I think that's where the hidden open secret lies, and so many opportunities. So that's again, if you're interested in this, follow Winniio, and if you want to, get started with implementing this stuff right now, that's exactly what we're doing for several customers across, a global scale. We're working on a digital twin project right now, and it's again, going back to Rio de Janeiro. So I digressed a little bit from there. Is that this is made possible, so that any country, any city, anywhere in the world, they can take their environment, virtualize that through a digital twin perspective, and then have my favorite word or saying is that they can invite to innovate on a global scale. And then my dream 20 years ago, just reaching out to anywhere in the world is possible because you can communicate through a visual understanding about that very thing that you want to talk about. Boundary spanning made possible through digital twinning and the metaverse combined. So if you're interested in these kind of things, again, just reach out to me and follow Winniio. And now I got to get back. In 3 minutes starts the next Brazil matchmaking event session. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about, but well, that's not true. I have a really, really good idea what I'm going to talk about, and it's how to apply modern tools in the right order to solve critical problems on a global scale. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. That's all for now. Thank you so much. Cheers.